Can you hear me?
I can.
Good. Thank you. All right. Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the regular board meeting, board business meeting for the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Directors for November 17th, 2021. We will call the meeting to order. All right. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Present.
Ms. Buckner? Yes. Ms. Cortez? Here. Ms. Ford?
Here.
Dr. Jones?
Present.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Hogan?
Here. All right, the motion, or everyone's here. How about that? All right, are there any proposed changes to the agenda as presented?
Yes, I wanted to ask if from the consent agenda, the healthy outcomes agreement could be pulled out. Is that what you meant? Yeah. To adjust the dates in there.
Yep. Is there any discussion? Okay. All right. I think we need a motion to make that move.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Oops, sorry.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfson?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. Okay, just for administration, the Healthy Outcomes contract has the incorrect date in it. So it says like October 18th of 2021 to October 17th, 2021, when I think it's supposed to be a year-long contract. So we'll just need to amend that and then bring that one back. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you, Ms. Ford, for bringing that forward. Appreciate it. All right, and June, will you review old action items for us?
All of the old action items have been responded to in the Friday update, so there are no outstanding action items.
Perfect, easy, I like it. Thank you, administration, for being responsive on those. All right, then we'll move right into public comment then. And we will start with Miss Angela Ward from the Comprehensive Arts Institute. Will you please come to the podium? Hey, good evening, Ms. Ward. Welcome. You will have 3 minutes to present.
I could do it really fast.
And we would just like to underscore the successes of students as a direct result of participation in our programs. There's information about our school in the handouts that June has for you. Even though we just recently incorporated as a nonprofit, we have a long history of facilitating music education programs in Kansas City. The youth that participate in our program have gone on to create incredible careers of their own, both nationally and internationally. I'm going to let Mr. Ward speak about our program.
Thank you. One of the largest, I guess, endeavors that we have is to hopefully empower the Kansas City, Missouri School District, Kansas City Public School students to participate in more district and state music programs and festivals and contests and things like that. So we would work with instrumental music teachers to bring up the skills, playing ability, sight reading, things like that. That will, help our students participate more on the state level and regionally. So
our goal today is to introduce you to the Comprehensive Arts Institute as a partnering entity to provide training in instrumental music alongside the music education programs that exist already in the public schools. What we do is we teach wind, percussion, piano, string instrument, and what we do is we teach grades 4 and up. And what we would like to do, and what we need from you today, is just a contact person or a liaison person that we can be in communication with, so that we may set up workshops, set up music lessons for our students in the Kansas City Public School District. When we go to different festivals and contests, we see less of our students than any other school district that's represented there. James is also a photographer. I'm not sure where we are at time, but he shoots music festivals, and he shoots over 2,000 children that are participating in music festivals and contests. And we literally see 2 schools from the Kansas City, Missouri School District participating in these festivals. And what we'd like to do is bring our kids to the forefront so that they are visible in the community in a positive way. And when we're going to these different festivals and see the students who can't afford music lessons, they can't afford the training that they need. We would like to give that to our kids here in the inner city and in the public schools.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
All right, we'll move on to Miss Victoria Davis. If you're here, will you please come to the podium? Okay. All right. Well, I'll ask Mr. Tom Love to step to the podium.
They can hear it, they can't see.
I'd like to make a recommendation tonight for Employee of the Year or something like that. I'm not sure what you would call it. I saw something on the internet about making recommendations. And Brandon Williams, his nickname is Bear. He works in your HVAC department. And I suggested to him this idea of putting in UV lights in the furnaces, in the cold air returns. And that's what they do in the hospitals to kill this virus in the air. The idea, of course, is if you can reduce the viral load in the air, you're much less likely to get a serious infection. And so people are probably going to get this virus one way or the other at some point in time. But he took it a step farther. He also recommended, and he said it was a team effort. I really love that because he says a team effort. He said he recommended the ionizers. And that takes out fumes out of the air as well, like paint fumes and things like that. It's a wonderful thing, and I'm relatively confident that we're going to see a lower absentee rate among the teachers and students as a result of this in the future. I'd also like to just talk, if I have another minute or something, is it all right? I'd really like to promote this idea that we tell parents, get informed parents about COVID-19. With this Delta variant that is spreading so much quicker, we have approximately half of children, school-age children in the country that have already had the virus. I just took a test last week. I took a test back in last December, 2 tests to prove that I actually already had the virus. And it wasn't such a bad thing because I was taking D3, and that's something you want to take in cold flu season, which begins like in November until April, because we're deficient. And that's people that are dying and hospitalized are typically deficient in D3 and zinc. But by taking this test, this antibody test, it verifies I've had the virus. And I saw it with my stepson. And I said, wouldn't that be a good thing for parents to know if your child's already had the virus, it costs $35, and they don't need the vaccine. And there's some questions about how that vaccine might impact children. But I bet these low-income parents in the state of Missouri would probably finance that. Maybe we could get a discount, maybe get it at half price, and have the students tested instead of just jabbing them with the vaccine when they may not need it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Love. And I believe that is it for public comment. So we will turn it over to Miss Angie Lyle with our District Advisory Council for the DAC report. Ms. Lyle?
Good evening. Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation tonight on behalf of the District Advisory Committee for Kansas City Public Schools. The DAC held its second meeting last week on November 10th, and we had, again, low attendance in the room, but we had an increased attendance on Zoom. We also had the opportunity to hear from board members, Dr. Maria Jones, thank you, and she spoke about Blueprint 2030, and Ms. Jennifer Wiltsey, again, thank you, who shared information about our upcoming lobby day on January 19th with an invitation to parents to join. Our meeting topics included the high need for mentors, thank you, Dr. Davis, and team. We learned about the 700 students that are still on a waiting list to be matched to or to find a mentor. We also discussed the procedure for school volunteers using the new portal on the KCPS website, so we'll be encouraging parents to try that out. Our DAC is committed to sharing the information with the parents in our schools and are encouraging school organizations to host a Blueprint 2030 at their school. Today, our DAC, we received an updated list of parent organizations, our board did, and according to the numbers we received, 22 schools do have some sort of parent organization that are meeting on a regular basis. So that's 22 great places you can take the Blueprint 2030, and we're already working with Ms. Kelly and Courtney to make that happen. It also appears that we have 13 schools without an organized parent support group. That means there are 13 schools who may not be receiving all of the information about these important programs, like mentorship, et cetera. And so we want to make sure that we can get all of the schools represented. So we're still working towards that goal. We have not received word yet on our official DAC delegate list, but once we do, we'll start engaging with those delegates one-on-one to see how much more we can get them engaged. And our next DAC meeting will be January 18th. It's a day early than our normal date because we'll be going to Jeff City on the 19th. So we will have that at 6 p.m. here at the Board of Education and online. And then the future dates, again, for reference, is March 16th and May 18th. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Lyle. I believe I will be with you on that January conversation, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, with that, I will turn it over to you, Dr. Bedell, for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to all who are attending today and those of you who are viewing via live stream. We have a couple of items under the superintendent's report. The first being our video highlight. Recently, we presented at the Missouri School Board Association, and one of the things that we presented on was some of the unique non-traditional programs that we offer in this school district that was also a part of in-person touring with representatives from around the state of Missouri. And we wanted to share the video highlight using that presentation with the board and the community. So Kelly will pass it over to get that going, and then we'll go through the remainder of the items on the agenda.
Hi, I'm Jordan Webb, and I'm doing multimedia. Multimedia is a combination of artistic things, like we're doing animation, videography, photography, illustration. I really like it because if I want to be an animator, there are jobs in demand for animators.
Hello, I'm Jermaine Sims. I'm part culinary arts. Here we do baking, cooking, and just a way to express yourself in a delicious manner, I guess you can say.
Hi, my name is Madeline Lerma. I'm a 12th grader at East High School. I come to Manual for my program as auto collision. And auto collision is learning how to do body work on vehicles and learning how to repair and rebuild. And also it's a good opportunity for future jobs and out of school. And it's a really good opportunity for others to learn new skills, social skills, and hand-on things.
I like that they offer different classes like culinary and multimedia because it gives you like a chance to taste what you want to do, like experience what you want to do. So I find it very fun and I like it here.
I go to Percentile Academy of Fine Arts, and coming here to Manual, just a grateful experience in how they allow us to come from our original school into Manual, and it's just an amazing thing that we can do. I come here to cook all the time, and I go back to school to do my regular day activities.
Things I started and learned in this program is using body filler on vehicles, knowing how to repair dents on vehicles, and painting and polishing vehicles. And also, we are going to start knowing how to weld in this program.
My name is Lawson Swan. Prep, we honor our ancestors, and one of the ways of doing that is dressing as them and having a paper for them. So, at AC Prep, we learn about our ancestry history. Unlike most schools, we don't just focus on Black History Month for 1 month or a couple days. We focus on it for the whole school year. Also, at AC Prep, you will learn your past of your Black African ancestors through dance, music, and the arts.
Hi, my name is Shiko Maturi. I'm a 7th grader here in ACCPA. At ACCPA, we focus on the continent of Africa, African music, African history, and African dance. That's one of the reasons why I like this school, because instead of just focusing on like Black History Month or anything like that, we celebrate it every day while we're here. We learn about the history and all that stuff.
Here at AC Prep, our academics here are very great. Our history classes teaches us of what we were before slavery, because slavery is just a very small part of our history. It teaches us of our pharaohs, the kings and queens.
It is important that we learn about our Black history because I feel like a lot of kids don't really touch on it, like Black kids, and it's very important that we learn our history because so we can connect more to it and know more about ourselves and our identity and who we are. So I really like the African art. I feel like it's very creative and different. Also, I like the dance. It's very you get to express yourself a lot, and it's just great.
Currently, we have 66 students and growing seemingly every day. I have some of our students here with us. Here we have Mosen from Sudan, and Mia and Dylan from Mexico.
Mi nombre es Dylan, vivo en México y me gusta mucho esta escuela porque me enseñan a hacer muchas cosas y me enseñan a hablar inglés.
My name is Dylan. I am from Mexico and I love this school because they teach me how to speak English and many other things.
Mi nombre es Valentina. Vine a esta escuela para aprender más inglés y para aprender muchas cosas de esta escuela.
My name is Mia Valentina. I came this school to learn how to speak English and to learn many other things.
So we have students come in every week from all over the world. We recently just got a student from the Sudan. The purpose of the program is to provide them a soft landing when they get here, give them meaningful instruction in English, reading, math. All of our teachers here are duly certified in elementary education and ESL. That's a best case scenario for our students. We have students from at least 15 different countries. They speak Spanish, French, Kinyarwanda, Kinyamulenge, Sudanese, Arabic, and the numbers keep growing. But our ultimate goal is to teach them English while making sure they don't fall behind academically.
So I want to thank our communications team for putting together that video. There were two other sites that we also visited, the early college and the middle college program. And as a result of these visits, we have at least two districts that want to have further conversation with us about how did we come about creating some of these newer programs. So we have our first district that we'll be speaking to on Friday, and then we're waiting to set up a meeting with the other district. But this was all for people who actually visited our school districts, board members, some administrators from different school districts. Were pretty intrigued by some of these things, in particular the middle college, because it's a program that we're not paying a penny for. So a lot of community funding, a lot of support from the Full Employment Council, and then we get to house that program also on the MCC's campus rent-free. So, it's about the partnerships, and we think we have an opportunity to do a lot more of these types of programs in the future, leveraging partners to make it a reality. So thank you, and look forward to continuing to be able to highlight what we have to offer here in the Kansas City Public School District. The next update will be our marketing update. I believe let me make sure I'm looking at the agenda correctly. Yes, marketing update. So we'll pass that over to Ms. Wachel, who will take us through that presentation.
Good evening. Hello, good evening, Board Dr. Bedell. Thank you for the chance to present tonight our monthly marketing update. Wanted to make sure that as we get into our slides, we always talk about the history and previous context of where we've been with our presentations for you as a board. You're very aware that we're with Older Communications for our marketing contract to review processes, look at our processes, make recommendations, and move forward in our marketing process in the school district. We're currently looking at the subcontractor. Dr. Holdsworth is here this evening, and so you'll hear a little bit from her at the end of the presentation about progress with that subcontractor. Also looking at history and previous context around first phase of 2030, enrollment trends, bi-monthly meetings, and then also reviewing the media bias for enrollment opening in December. And again, these two graphics I'll always keep up here as our marketing overview or pre-overview for historical context for you all. Current status. Again, Dr. Holden will be here talking about our work with her and our partnership with her. Again, looking at the marketing subcontractor and looking at that work through our marketing contract. Planning and executing Blueprint 2030 engagement. Some of the screenshots you see here talk about our first gallery walks week, some of the virtual engagements and the online engagement that we've done. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that throughout the rest of this presentation. And again, currently working on promotion, planning, and communication of enrollment opening here December the 6th. Current status. We wanted to show you some really solid examples of reflections from our Student Summit. We hosted a Student Summit a couple weeks ago, about 60 high school students from all of our high schools in the school district. This was an opportunity to spend about three and a half hours. Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Thank you, superintendents and team and principals for working to get all of these students to come talk solely about Blueprint 2030 for 3 hours with us here at the board office. We had the students kind of simulate the gallery walks that we did with our adult population, our families, and our community members, and that first gallery walk engagement series that we had. What I wanted you to notice on these slides, on the left side of the screen, you see a big stack of flip chart paper. And that top one there talks about CCR classes, dual credit, AP, IB, more options, tutoring, all of the things related to student outcomes, student achievement. Our kids are very much in tune to what they want to see for their coursework and their advanced coursework in particular. And they were very much honed in on how the district can support them with additional classes and the right coursework to get them what they need to be college and career ready. On the right side, you see a flip chart paper that talks about extracurriculars, culturally relevant teaching, talent, skills, sports, athletics, field trips. These are really important as well. We have to support the student outcome, student achievement measures and experiences with a robust experience all around for our kids. And again, they're very much in tune to that. These were common themes that we heard from our students. The other exercise that we had the students do for the Blueprint 2030 Student Summit is we had them, again, simulate the gallery walk where they provided post-it note feedback on our board stations for each section and topic that we're looking at Blueprint 2030. We wanted to highlight some of these post-it notes for you so that you can see for yourself some of the snapshots of what they were thinking on this day. These two gals are from Southeast, and they were buds throughout the whole day, talking about and collaborating about their ideas and what they wanted to see in the process. But one thing that we wanted to highlight on these post-it notes for you is in that lower right, it says, it seems like all of these goals are focused around support, and I like that. Again, the kids very much notice when we're trying to add support systems to carry them through their student experience. So that was one that we really were glad that the kids noticed in the goals and topics that we had before them. You see tutoring, Differentiated learning. I love that kids know the words differentiated learning. They know that they need different things for different students to excel in their coursework. Goals focusing on family engagement. Again, our kids want families, adults in the community to be engaged with them and learning about their experience in KCPS. These post notes, again, just a sampling of what our kids told us. More classes for students on subjects that reflect today's world. Again, very much into that CCR, college career readiness, internships, more partnerships with the inner city jobs. That was a really important one that stuck out to us. How do we get our kids in our businesses, in our community to thrive and be productive in what they want to do with their careers? Finding passions, adding more languages, hiring teachers of color, and looking at, again, that culturally relevant teaching and that diversity component among our staff members. Current status with our Blueprint 2030 engagement series. One of the things that we want to keep talking about as we talk about Blueprint 2030 is that context and where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So again, we started Blueprint 2030 before COVID even hit, with some of our assessment information, some of our initial surveying, some of our Hanover report, Mass Insight reports, information gathering, focus group gathering. During that pause of COVID, we took time to again kind of look at the data, see where we are, we regroup. And as we got into March last spring, again, picking up some of that assessment, goal setting, value statements, mission statements. This is very small text, everyone, but it's a good snapshot that's on our website of our current chunks of phases that you can see where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So it has March, it has April, it has May, it has the summertime, and it has kind of currently what we've been doing in our engagement process to visit with our community. Then it also talks about kind of to be determined, so into December, January, and February, throughout next spring in our process. Current status, more information about our marketing collateral. Here are some snips of our current collateral that we've been rolling out this fall. We had the City Schools Fair on Saturday. Numerous schools attended that, where we had collateral, we had tables, we had pre-K recruiting materials. So far, initial feedback is really positive about being present. One of our high schools took students to the City Schools Fair so that students could talk to potential families or kids. And that was one of the things that we heard most positively about, is that peer-to-peer interaction, or that peer-to-future parent interaction. Hearing from kids in our schools currently was really impactful for those attendees at the middle school fair. Currently we're on direct mail postcard drops throughout December, January, and February aligned with our opening of enrollment. Also billboards, posters, geofence mobile ads, we've approved all of those. Moving forward for enrollment opening, you'll start to see those roll out here at the beginning of December as enrollment opens. Just talk about City Schools Fair, and then we'll be hosting our virtual middle school fair in January. We piloted this, started this middle school fair last year in a virtual environment where middle schools come, principals, teachers, counselors, and present to anyone who wants to attend and learn more about our middle schools, specific programs, specific courses, specific flavors of our middle schools at this middle school fair. Last year we had some fun elementary kids who, as an assignment for their class, had to attend the middle school fair from the elementary level. So looking at engaging our elementary counselors, our elementary 6th grade teachers, or 5th grade teachers in some cases, to have their kids join the middle school fair and have the kids learn about it with their parents at the same time. Future planning, again, continuing Blueprint 2030 engagement with community organization conversations. I'm talking really fast. And December town hall events, December 7th and 14th. You will be receiving a calendar invitation from June, if not already, for these 2 town hall events. They'll be 5:30 to 7, so at the after work hours, and we'll be in person at 2 of our high schools, middle school and high school. With these town halls, we heard from that first round of gallery walks, virtual engagement, that they wanted to have some large group debrief, large group conversation, large group share out in this process. So we really want to accommodate that feedback to have a town hall style event here in December. At these events, we'll talk more about where we are in the process, goals, mission, and then start looking forward to school profiles, scenarios, in that timeline of the plan as we get to the spring with some more recommendations towards the end of the school year. So be looking for those calendar invites, and we'll start promotion of those events after the fall break next week. Also, continue to engage the subcontractor conversation with Dr. Holdsworth, the storytelling of the district. Again, the video you saw tonight, student voice has to be really amplified. Again, when students talk about their experience, it's the real application of what we're doing in our schools every day. One of the things I'm really excited for as we get ready to launch our radio commercials for enrollment opening, I've tasked our team with ensuring that it's student voice doing our radio commercials. So you'll hear actual students in our schools advertising for our schools as they get launched in December and January. And then again, the look and feel of KCPS as a whole. How do we continue to package neighborhood signature, unique programs, all of the services that we provide as an overall KCPS brand, image, and perception for the community. Successes, we wanted to give you kind of a smattering here of social posts about our students, about their successes. You get to see a wide range of elementary, middle, and high school student projects, performances here, things that they've been doing in their schools to really highlight their learning and what they're achieving every day. Successes, we also wanted to show you our current September count comparisons, KCPS versus charters. You can see just by visual representation here how we are staying above charter schools in the enrollment count. And again, it's very important that we stay above that 50% threshold of students versus charter schools, and then again, continue to increase and continue to grow our enrollment throughout our marketing, enrollment, academic, school programs, proving that we have to be the school district of choice for our families in the community. Opportunities for improvement, these are the same as they've remained for the past few months, continuing to find creative ways to go to our community for engagement opportunities. We had some good feedback at our Blueprint Advisory Committee meeting in November, talking about utilizing coaches and teachers and some of those on-the-ground folks in our schools who have really good relationships with our kids and with our families. So helping our coaches and teachers have talking points, understand events coming up, and have them help relay the message of Blueprint 30 to our families on the ground versus from this district level. And then again, continuing to measure ROI on marketing, communications, and initiatives. Excited for Dr. Holdsworth doing some of this work right now to kind of show and highlight some of these opportunities for us in our marketing partnership. These barriers continue to be the same as you see on a monthly basis too. Enrollment trends continuing nationally, regionally, and locally, as well as communication fluctuations. Now, we're getting a little bit smoother on communication fluctuations. We have a little bit more grasp on COVID communications. Our principals and staff at the school level, nursing staff are doing a great job of continuing with those COVID notifications, being really on top of that, but also just working through, transportation's been so much better as far as meeting routes and picking up students and delivering students home. Just really good progress in that operations front so that we don't have to be communicate as much about things that we might need to work on. Then action items, I do have Dr. Holdsworth here this evening, and so we can have her do her part and ask questions, or we can do questions and then have her present what is best for you all.
Anyone have a preference?
She might package it up kind of really nicely, and then we can ask some questions if that works for you all.
That works.
All right, Dr. Holdsworth.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm getting some feedback. All right, well, thank you all for having me. I'm excited to give an update of where we're at. Research phase. We've condensed this. Anybody that's been involved with research knows that research usually takes time. And when I originally applied for this role back in June, thinking we would have more time over the summer and into the fall, but I have to give kudos to the entire KCPS team that I've been working with. I've been working with people on a daily basis, including some board members, administrators, principals. I'm in communication pretty much daily. So this is where we're at right now. I've already visited several KCPS schools and spent quite a bit of time at central office. Also checked out some competitors, which I will get to here in a minute. Conducted to this point 24 one-on-one and were small group interviews. I did 30 online secret shopping experiences with other schools in the area and other school districts. We also, my team did user testing, and we found some people that spoke different languages so that we were able to go through on kcpublicschools.org for initial impression of the homepage, as well as how to find enrollment and those enrollment experiences as a new family. And we conducted those in Spanish, English, Somali, and Swahili. And we're doing this in process for enrollkc.org right now. Also did SEO audit of the kcpublicschools.org site. Oh, there. Sorry, I'm losing my slides here. I could see on the screen. And we did website content and social media audits, both on the KCPS and several competitor sites and social channels. Also reviewed your various e-newsletters, the Hanover Research's 2020 study, the Patron Insights 2015 study, most recently your strategic enrollment and marketing plan, the 2020 to 2023, which I don't have on here because I just wrapped that up. Analysis of your enrollment goals and projections versus the fall 2021 fall numbers. And then analyze any of the communications, marketing, admissions, enrollment materials, documents, reports, budgets, and plans provided to date. And again, my sincere thanks to the KCPS team, because I'm usually on a daily basis asking for one more. It's open one door and find 3 more behind it, but we're trying to wrap this up. I recognize that we are getting very close to enrollment opening. And so we've been doing a little bit of research with some mini initial recommendations along the way. And Kelly, I'm not sure if you're controlling the slide, but we can move to the next one here to kind of go over that a little bit. And so thank you for switching it over. So, you know, as a researcher, professional researcher, it's irresponsible to make broad-based recommendations and decisions when the research phase is still being conducted. However, there have been some small recommendations I felt going into enrollment season so quickly that we could be making along the way. And that includes making the recommendations of weekly or bi-weekly marketing, enrollment, admissions meetings. They had been conducted before and then lapsed with everybody's busy schedules. And I've been told that those are back on track. One of the things I was finding was just some lack of communication and everybody doing their own thing, which is very, very, very typical in areas and schools and school districts where there are 2 different departments. So they've been working well together, at least from what I'm seeing on my end. Also working with the enrollment admissions teams with the survey of recent applicants to assess ease of the online registration process, recognizing that Infinite Campus is still fairly new. And my recommendation was to have it translated into Spanish, Somali, and Swahili to correspond with current online registration form. Those are the options available for languages right now. A parent survey to assess communication preferences. And I've spoken to Kelly about this. And as she spoke about just a few minutes ago, the amount of communication going out to parents, we've decided that this will align with the Blueprint 2030 research that they'll be doing in the spring. Also, we'll be recommending a principal and admin survey to better understand admissions enrollment needs at their actual physical buildings and to assess their communications preferences. So these are 2 different components here. We'll be looking at what is it that the principal and administrators, each of the school buildings, need to have and want to have in their buildings for anybody that might be dropping by or trying to make appointments, checking out the school. What is it that they need to be able to do their jobs and to help families get enrolled effectively and efficiently. And then we are also going to assess the communications preferences. Like a lot of school districts, and I'm very excited to see all the wonderful news coming out, but sometimes it can be hard to get information from the schools, and it can be hard to get information to the schools because people are busy doing their jobs, running buildings and doing these roles. So we want to figure out how is it best to communicate those preferences and the top 2 or 3 ways, because as we know, one way doesn't usually work for everybody. So we'll take a look at that. Also looking at, Major Brooks and I have been talking about this, a development of a visual map depicting enrollment paths within KCPS. So showing families how you can start from pre-K and go all the way through. We talked to, heard about the middle college, all the different paths that they can take within the school district, that they do not have to leave the school district for their different options. And then just making it nice and visual so that people can have a very quick idea of the different options available to them without having to search too much for information. Also looking at a simplification of online data capture, and that's in progress. So we're taking a look at how can we get the data easier, whether it's a recruiter on site, whether it's in the school building, whether it's somebody coming and filling out a form very quickly. How is it that we can capture that data? And then other technical recommendations that we're going through, such as FTP linking between Infinite Campus and Benchmark One, which is the communications team e-newsletter service that they have available already, how to capture those emails of people that are interested in learning more about a school in the district or the district as a whole, and or at events like the enrollment fair or any of the recruiting events. And then we also chat a little bit about the prominence of an enroll button or a pop-up about enrollment. So that's an option. So these are just very, very, very small scale initial recommendations. Again, as I mentioned, it would be irresponsible to me to make broad-based recommendations and planning as we're still in the research phase, but recognizing that enrollment is quickly coming upon us. These are just little components that we can start to work on right now. And I think there's one more slide, if I'm not mistaken. It could be. All right, thank you. And then next steps. And then Kelly, I don't know how you want to approach this, but we have identified a recommended subcontractor to work on some very specific projects that I'm already finding almost are like low-hanging fruit for the district. However, they take specialized help that I can assist in guiding. We're going to talk about enrollment funnel scripting and design. So that it's basically so that anybody that's registering through the district or inquiring is going to be able to be put into a funnel depending on how they're submitting their information, so that we do not have to be reminded, oh, we didn't follow up with that person in 2 weeks. Oh, it's been 3 weeks since we heard back from them, where they're getting consistent messaging from the district throughout the process, from the time they apply all the way until enrollment starts and school starts. We're also developing sample marketing templates and lead magnets. Lead magnets are showing the district's expertise in certain areas that will attract potential people to the district, people that are interested. And in exchange, we are able to capture their information for something that's helpful to them. Creation of standard strategic communications and marketing calendar. This is something that Kelly and I have been discussing so that it's a visual representation. And then ongoing analysis of digital communications activities, both marketing and enrollment driven. So taking a look at how everything is working on an ongoing basis so that we can make tweaks as needed versus waiting a year to see how it goes. If we can look at something over a week or 2 weeks, and if it's one of my recommendations is not working, then I can go in and make a very quick tweak or a change, and we can see how that goes, or A/B test.
So that Amanda had 3 slides for us.
Kelly, do you want to talk about the subcontractor?
Yes.
Or do you want me to bring that up?
Yeah, we can do
Sorry,
that.
I can't see everybody.
Can you hear me, Dr. Holdsworth? Okay, so like Dr. Holdsworth just said, recommended subcontractor. We are looking at Soda Pop. Soda Pop Graphics. She is a Lincoln Prep graduate, has been doing this work for many years as it relates to graphics, email marketing, design, and just the flavor of Kansas City. So working with her to get some scope of work lined out so that she can help us immediately and be impactful with some email marketing as well as some design elements with those low-hanging fruit pieces that we wanted to look at that Amanda was visiting about. So I can give you more information about Soda Pop in our Friday update, some more demographic information about her and her company in particular, but that's where we're looking to go with that subcontractor piece of the contract.
And Kelly, I would like to add about Soda Pop. One of, not only is she an alumna, as Kelly had mentioned, but the company specializes in SEO, and they were built on the foundation of email marketing design to make information and communication to targeted audiences very clear and concise. And I believe, at least from the SEO audit that I've run on the different sites, that she can have, and she and her team have an immediate impact on the website, both websites, both KCPS and Enroll KC, but specifically as we look at admissions enrollment and where you land in the organic search results. And then also with the enrollment, as I mentioned here, the enrollment funnel scripting and design, I'm very experienced in getting the key messages targeted for admissions enrollment. But with Soda Pop's background working with large companies, different organizations, they have the design feel that I believe will make the messages stand out, because as we'll find as we go through this process with my secret shopping, not everybody had a great email response. Not everybody responded, but a lot of schools did respond. A lot of schools, a lot of districts did respond. But I have to say that there's a lot of room to be desired in terms of not just design and to make it look, and lack of more professional terms, fancy schmancy, but really to capture the essence of KCPS's brand and all the wonderful things going on. So I'm excited about this possibility and the fact that we actually have an alumna who's very excited to be able to potentially work with the district.
Cool. Thank you, Ms. Weichel and Dr. Holdsworth. I'll open it up for questions. Ms. Cortez?
So I feel like I'm asking the same question over and over, so I apologize. But with the secret shopper testing and all the testing that's been done on Enroll KC, are we ready?
I can tell you that from my conversations with admissions and enrollment departments, every day when I ask, hey, I was thinking about doing this, or are you doing this? Something has been in process and they have had an answer for me. So I feel confident that we will be ready. Do I know if it's going to work? I can't say until we try, but I can tell you that you have a team that's very dedicated on the inside, and I wouldn't just say that. So I have to say that they've been very receptive while everything's going on. And I believe that at least from the enrollment and admissions perspective and how things will look on the website and the application, if most of my recommendations can be, these small recommendations can be added, I believe that we will be good to go.
So we've been working for the past 2, 3, 4 weeks intently on the marketing communication side of the enrollment admissions process. So tomorrow we have our first initial communication going out to our staff and principals about some internal admissions pieces that you're going to see tonight in your presentation. And then we'll also have wide-scale family communication going out tomorrow to just ease into the process, set them up for success as they start the process in December. So you'll see some more information as David presents here next about enrollment admissions process, but yes, we'll be ready to go.
Ms. Buckner?
Hi, I appreciate, I'm going to go back to Blueprint 2030. I appreciate the pictures of the sticky notes, but I think it would be really helpful if we have a more streamlined and just an update on the trends that we're hearing and seeing from the Blueprint 2030, just the anecdotal data. I think that would be really helpful to have so that we can be more informed in that way. Again, I appreciate, the actual data from the sticky notes, but if we could just have a more streamlined approach to what we're hearing and seeing, that would be great.
We agree with you, and as Jesse talks a little about Blueprint 2030 in his presentation this evening, and as we bring in those next steps of packaging the information, the trend, the process moving forward, you're right in line with where you need to be as far as the trends, the themes that are emerging have to start coming out so we get some more feedback on those trends and themes emerging to keep moving forward.
Okay.
We really agree.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Abarca?
We do, and Jesse will talk a little bit more about that in his presentation as well, of the different neighborhoods, populations, demographics, and activities that we've been doing and what groups of people are attending those. We do have that data for you, so he'll talk a little bit more about that. As we look at moving forward with our town halls and as we go into more online engagement through January, February, and even in-person engagement, one of the things that you guys will be engaging in as board members is our, again, key influencer conversations, our organizational conversations. Angie Lyle just mentioned about the DAC and the SACs. Our area of weakness right now that we've got to get better in is our school-based parents in all of our neighborhood and signature schools. So we really do need some help and support from those school advisory teams, those principals, those lead teachers, those coaches, those really lead parents even, to get more engagement at the school level. Now, does that mean that we're going to every school to do engagement after school during car ride or pickup? We're still trying to figure out the best way to approach that. Angie emailed today, again, with that SAC piece. Maybe we go to every single SAC meeting or parent organization meeting, which we need to do, and have the gallery walk set up so that parents in real time can see how those topics affect their population at their school specifically. So we see it's an area of growth and that we've got to get more parents engaged from our schools specifically. So I would say that's where we have to really keep working at.
A couple more around Blueprint 2030 and then one about the consultant's comments. What do we expect? I see here in this slide 14 that's up, the Engagement 3 series, February, May. Can you tell us more about what the public should expect in the town halls, and then what to expect in February and May? It seems like sometimes, at least from my vantage point, these are 2 or 3 week kind of notices and we're rushed to get in there, and I'm not sure what the public's expectation is to consume or to participate in. So can you share a little more about that?
Yes, so the town halls that we'll have in December, again, we're still kind of on this goal setting and mission vision, setting up the profiles, the scorecards for the schools, the scenario work that has to come in the spring. So these town halls, again, based on feedback that people wanted to have larger conversations, debrief together, hear everyone else's comments in the room, and not just have that gallery walk where they had great conversations and first conversations, but the larger hearing of what's being said in a town hall environment. What I will say as we get into the spring, when you do see kind of to be determined, right now we're in this spot where we're looking at that consultant to come in and support that technical work, that content work, that packaging work. So we really have to make sure that we're, doing the work in conjunction with the engagement. We want to engage on content that we have ready. And so now it's just make sure that the timing is right with having content, packaged materials, delivery of things that we want to talk about ready before we start going out there engaging. So again, our challenge is that coinciding engagement with content that we have to have ready for the public.
My final, suggestion or comment is around the subcontractor. I look forward to seeing somebody with some experience in the Latino community specifically, as well as ability to reach multi-languages, because I think that is critical. I love the fact that we've got a diverse person that has alumni status, but also some of these other components, right? If we can't even communicate in the language of a majority of a population, we're going to have some issues.
Dr. Holdsworth, are you still on the line?
Yes.
When we were exploring and you were doing some of your exploration, did you hear Mr. Abarca's question about the multilingual, the Hispanic population as far as growing demographics? Did you hear his question to maybe be able to address that?
I did not hear the question, sorry.
Okay, so, and Mr. Abarca, you want to repeat that, or I can? Okay, so Amanda, when we were looking at our subcontractor list, looking at some possibilities, do you want to talk a little bit about how we looked at those? Did we have a chance to look at broader demographics to support our multilingual populations?
For when we were looking at the subcontractors?
Yes.
Because I believe that list was provided by your procurement department. Am I mistaken?
No, you're correct. I just wanted to make sure that we had both shared that the procurement department provided those. We went down the list and checked out every single one of those.
Yeah, we explored all of them. We interviewed a couple, I think maybe 2 or 3 different ones. We did say that it's a priority with multilingual populations. And as I presented with earlier, even notifying that the work that I've had with my team, and I've hired out through our own little contracting with the website development and taking a look at the website. So recognizing that you have multiple languages, that's very important. And even the recommendations that we've made so far in terms of even parent survey and feedback, having them in different languages and having them translate it. I spoke to the wonderful team at the International Welcome Center and ELL, and we've discussed how we can even have the paper components for their audience and the materials translated. Sorry, that screen's really bright in my eyes. And the materials translated. And as we talk to the different subcontractors, mentioning that this is not only just very important, but if there is extra work that my team can provide, we're happy to do so as part of the work we're doing with KCPS.
Dr. Jones?
Yes, thank you all for the presentation. I just had a two couple quick points, I hope. The first piece is I noticed the part about surveying parents about the enrollment process and that sort of thing. I think that the challenge with that is going to be the people who opt in to do those surveys. Those are going to be the people who are more likely to have the stamina and the know-how to do an enrollment process as it is currently. So you're going to dilute your feedback in that. I would just recommend, like, because you have so many other deliverables for this contract, I would recommend maybe just kind of assuming from jump, like, how do we kind of make it at the lowest level of literacy feasible, make it at the, the most accessible form, knowing that if you make it at that level, you'll hit everybody. And that's something I'm dealing with even in my work, where we're learning that we're talking about multiple languages in public health, where we're learning that a lot of people from these multiple languages are not even literate. So it won't work to just say, okay, we'll put it in a different language. It's got to be plain. It's got to be, even at the level that we're talking about, more pictures, less verbiage. I mean, this is kind of where we are with plain language. So that would be my recommendation for that. And then the other, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I completely agree with you. Absolutely. I mean, we've made everything too difficult, and it doesn't, no matter what the language is spoken, even just for parents. I'm a parent. And when I hear current parents that say they spend an hour and a half to 2 hours to do online registration, that's an issue. And especially when you're talking about literacy issues, when you're talking about multilingual, with the parent survey of how the online registration form set up, we needed to have some kind of baseline. So we needed to know, where are we at versus where we're going to be in 2 or 3 years when they have goals of making the process easier, getting more people enrolled online. If we don't have a baseline data to start with, I agree. I mean, any of these types of surveys, parents are over surveyed. Doesn't matter where in the country that they're at. And you're right. You usually get, you can either get the parents who are literate, or you get parents who have a lot to complain about sometimes. I know that I am a frequent survey taker sometimes as I get them, but yes, I definitely appreciate your comments in those areas. And that's something that we are considering. So I appreciate that feedback.
And I think there are a few different ways to measure without asking someone how easy was this process or difficult. Like, you could look at dropout rates of, who abandoned, and I know y'all do some of that already. I think it's a both and. It's not saying that won't work at all. It's just saying that it won't tell you a full picture by itself. And I know you're trying to establish a baseline. And then my second point was just, I had an interesting conversation with someone today who talked about how multiple teachers, educators in our district had recommended that their specific child needs to go to another school, a charter. And it just made me wonder, like, as I tried to probe, well, what's special about that? Like, okay, your kids is not Lincoln bound, but what is it about this other school? And so it was just something about, they felt, I think if I could hear the conversation today, it sounded like differentiated instruction, like, hey, for my specific child and their learning style, this particular charter, like Crossroads, it was a charter, they seem to be better suited for different children who have, they're not, whatever, I don't know, the neighborhood school is not good enough for them, and so it just made me think, I don't know if that's showing up in some of the things that Dr. Holsworth and her team are looking through, or some of the old reports we have already, but just, I'm kind of honing in on this idea of what logic is behind some people's choices about the presumption of what is for their child, what's going to be a better fit, and why you can't get those things in our neighborhood schools. So that's just something fresh on my mind. So
that is wonderful. And I wonder if perhaps if we can have 15 minutes to chat so I can hear a little bit more about the conversation, because I can tell you that's no different than the reports in 2015 and 2020 that the district commission talking about neighborhood schools and often the perceptions. And Dr. Bedell, I was very fortunate to have 30 minutes of his time when we talked very openly and candidly about the wonderful things happening in the neighborhood schools and how to share those stories more. So Kelly, perhaps we can do a little e-connection, because I think that's wonderful feedback. And if you don't mind, I would really appreciate hearing more.
We'll make it happen.
Thank you.
Ms. Wolfsey.
Thank you. I wondered if we could go to page, I think it's 15, the current status on some of our, I think what we're doing right now. So on things like direct mail, postcard drops, I know we're getting ready on December 6th to launch enrollment. And so this being, I'm kind of a broken record when it comes to this, but I'm trying to tie efforts to outcomes. And so my question would be, in these, and I'm just going to pick on direct mail postcard drops, like what are we doing there to target, and what are we doing to track the, if anything is going to be tied to that particular piece? So we can understand on the backside, okay, these were targeted at middle school students for this particular feeder pattern. We used this phone number or this URL to track or QR code, and this was the response rate. You know, are we doing that sort of?
So
okay.
we're using, at this point, we're using new mover information on households with students in
Okay.
their house, in their home. So we're doing that by neighborhood schools specifically throughout the whole district. That being said, one of the things that Dr. Holdsworth, we were talking about earlier on in the process, we call those the vanishing links or links that tie back to, if you click on this link, we know it's from this postcard in this neighborhood, and they got to us from this postcard that we mailed. So we're just looking at tracking that a little bit more intently to see if they're working, what neighborhoods they're working in. Was it a household that had a student age child in their home? So these are all things that we're looking at. And again, as we're doing our radio ads even, we are doing the enroll kc.org, and then the back end tag is tied to a specific station or a specific time of day even, that they heard that ad and responded to that ad. So we're doing that a little bit more intently this year on the back of recommendations, as well as when we do that, to make sure that we know where our customers are coming from.
Great. And so I don't know if this is too much to ask, but I'm curious as we go through enrollment, since it will start on the 6th, will we be getting in the Friday update just kind of what, like every Friday, kind of where those numbers are tracking as far as what you're seeing on, because that is the 6th, the day they can actually begin to sign up for the easy sign up, as I call it. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's doable. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely doable.
Great. Thank you.
All right, well, because Ms. Buckner stole one of my points, and in the interest of time, I'm going to move us on to the next topic. Thank you, Ms. Waichel. Thank you, Dr. Holdsworth. All right, Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Holdsworth and Ms. Waichel. So at this time, we will move the presentation up to Signature School Admission and Requirements. And we will have David Rand, our Executive Director of Research and Accountability, to take us through these slides.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell, Board Chair Hogan, Board Community. I am here this evening, as promised from the last board meeting, to provide an update on our Signature School admissions. So to start, our current district policy gives Dr. Bedell the authority to set our Signature School requirements. As we are all well aware, because of the pandemic, we had to establish some temporary admissions requirements, most notably suspending the use of testing at Lincoln. Although we did this last November, we know we were still in lockdown, and that information probably didn't get out to as many folks as we wanted. And so we heard quite clearly from the Lincoln community over the summer that they really would have preferred additional engagement and better communication. So as we approach this topic for this year, that is something we really wanted to be a lot better at. And so in partnering with Lincoln, really appreciative to Principal Foster. She held a couple of in-person engagement events that were also streamed on Facebook Live. And we also did a thought exchange. For folks that might not be familiar with thought exchange, what that does is it allows us to put a question out to a group of stakeholders and allow those stakeholders to provide written feedback. So the question that we provided to our stakeholder group was, what does the district need to consider in thinking about Lincoln admissions? There were some common themes that emerged, both from the engagements as well as the thought exchange. Not surprisingly, a lot of common feelings around academic rigor. the ABCs, that's attendance, behavior, course grades. Also a common theme that we saw is folks really thinking that the students really need to want to be at Lincoln and need to be committed to the IB program. That was important to a lot of folks. A couple other common threads we saw was around class size as well as equity. One thing that we did not see a common thread around was testing. Between the engagements and the thought exchange, we saw a pretty even split among families that felt we should have a test requirement and for families that we should not have a test requirement. The snip on the right side of this slide is showing you one of those statements from thought exchange. One of the great things about thought exchange is not only can you provide your written feedback, you can see the written feedback from everybody else that has provided that, and then you can rate that feedback and those thoughts accordingly. On the bottom right-hand side of the snip, what you're seeing are those bar graphs representing ratings on this particular question, from a 1, which is I very much disagree and hate this statement, to a 5 that says I strongly agree and really feel connection with this statement. This particular statement was basically around, we know we have kids that can be successful at Lincoln that don't meet the testing requirements. How do we provide a path for them? And as you can see, there is a pretty even distribution on here between 1-star and 5-star reviews, which matches up with the in-person feedback that we got and which we really saw a split on this issue. And so what additional things did we need to consider as we really mulled over this testing issue? One big thing, as I know many of us are aware, we have a lot of colleges and post-secondary institutions that are starting to move away from a traditional ACT or SAT. But this next bullet was really one of the big keys for our team. The way that standardized testing works is that before a testing company publishes and sells their assessment, they go through what's called a norming phase. What this is they basically pay school districts across the country to give this assessment with the intent of getting tens of thousands of kids at every single grade level to take the assessment so that they can make sure that it's reliable and valid. And so what that means is after they publish and sell the assessment, when a student takes that test, they are compared against those students from that norm group, which means that if you take a standardized test, if you're at the 60th percentile, what that means is if you look at that norm group from before they publish the test, out of every 100 students in that group, you performed as well or better than 60 of them. And that's what's called a national percentile. And so as we think about our students taking that assessment post-COVID, the key here is these testing companies have not renormed their assessment. That means students taking that assessment today, post-COVID, are being compared against pre-COVID students. Now, what exacerbates this and causes serious equity concerns is we know that our students that are of lower socioeconomic status, our students of color, are the ones most disproportionately affected by COVID. And so not only do we already have some wonderings around inherent biases in standardized testing even before COVID, but now our population, the ones most affected by COVID, those students are being compared against pre-COVID students. Now, we also have to acknowledge that by waiving the testing requirements, there are situations where you have created where students are not showing up to Lincoln on day one ready to succeed. And that's not something Lincoln has traditionally had to deal with. We looked at our first quarter grades from this fall compared to fall of 2019, pre-pandemic. And we say that the percentage of overall grades that are a D or an F have basically doubled at both the middle school and the high school. Another thing is concerns around student behavior. We know that our families and our students have experienced a large amount of trauma over the past 18 months, and that trauma is playing itself out in our classrooms. Lincoln Middle and Lincoln High are no different, and so that is definitely something we need to keep in mind. Also, stuff that we had heard even before COVID is even more important now is how do we provide an avenue for our families and our students to advocate for themselves? There are a wide variety of extenuating circumstances that our students and families experience that can affect grades, that can affect attendance. If you lose your parent during the school year, you're probably not going to have the greatest grades, the greatest attendance, and you might have behavior issues. That's something that can definitely happen. Other thing to consider is we have not admitted any students in spring of 2019, which means we do have credit deficient students currently at Lincoln that are behind and not on track to graduate. Another thing is, although we did some engagement, we feel like there is a lot of opportunity to do additional engagement around this issue. The engagement we did was mostly around with current Lincoln families, and we really need to expand that to ensure that we engage alumni as well as prospective families that aren't already in our system. So all of that leads to the decision that we are going to extend the COVID temporary admission requirements of waiving test scores at Lincoln. Now we know that we can't just do that and call it good. And so it's incredibly important that our leadership and school leadership are providing supports to Lincoln to ensure that every student is given every opportunity to be successful. Whether they're struggling academically or struggling social emotionally, we have to ensure that those supports are in place. Also, in terms of doing additional engagement, we want to do a year-long, more robust engagement, not just around Lincoln admissions, but really what should signature school admissions requirements look like post-COVID. Lastly, another piece that I think is incredibly important, knowing that last year was unprecedented, in no way near a normal school year. This school year isn't even normal, with quarantines and so forth. And so as we consider students for admissions, we're going to be looking at an entire body of work back to fall of 2019. So with that, here are our current signature school admissions requirements. For our Lincoln campuses, our AC Prep campuses, and for Paseo, you see that there are GPA, attendance, and behavior requirements. For Paseo, they will be doing the audition for grades 9 and up. Now, I know you guys are sitting there looking at positive behavior record, saying, that seems very broad, very subjective. And yes, it is. And there's a reason for that. The reason is that as we're looking at students coming in from other systems, what we may consider a class 3 or class 4 offense might not be the same as what kids coming in from other systems might be suspending students a lot more and for a lot less serious things than we would here. And so while when we talk about discipline, we really are looking at those class 3 and class 4 offenses with the different kids from different systems, and even within our system in revising the code of conduct over the last few years, there has to be some subjectivity involved. And so what that looks like is when a school reviews a discipline record and they question whether that student is able to be successful on their campus, they send that discipline record to our discipline review committee. This committee is made up of our director of admissions, our student discipline officer, our school leadership, as well as others. And they take that discipline record, they go through a rubric, and they have a discussion as a team, and ultimately come up with a decision or a recommendation back to that principal on whether they feel that that student can be successful on that campus. Lastly, for foreign language and Carver, you have to pass a language test after kindergarten to get in. And for our Montessori schools, you need previous Montessori experience after kindergarten as well. Now, we did provide an update at the last meeting, but there are a couple other things that we have looked at administratively that I definitely wanted to provide an update on. The first being our proofs of residency. Previously, we had required 2 proofs of residency, and this has been a challenge for a lot of our families and a barrier to enrollment. So we looked at state statute, we consulted with the legal team, and determined that we only have to require 1 proof of residency. I think this is going to be huge for a lot of our families as we think about our newly arriving immigrants. You saw a story I saw a story on the internet, 20 Afghan immigrants all living in one apartment. Might be a little to provide proof of residence. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for our families to access our system. The next piece is around staff from outside of the district bringing their students. I want to be very clear. We want your students to be part of our system. We welcome all of our staff from outside the district to attend any of our district schools except the ones that are full. The reason for that is if it's full or there's a waiting list and we give a seat to a family from outside of the district, that is taking a seat away from a family within the district that's paying taxes. And that's not fair. And so I know that there's probably some staff members watching this wondering, oh my God, are they going to kick our kids out? No, we absolutely are not. They're grandfathered in, but moving forward, we think it's really important for equity, for the system as a whole, that we are not taking seats away from district residents. Another piece is Carver and Paseo have been working together over the past couple of years to establish kind of a pipeline where those students at Carver can continue their dual language experience at Paseo. And so new this year is any 6th grade student at Carver that wants to attend Paseo is automatically accepted. Now, the last piece is, and I shared, I think at the last meeting, that we're really making it a lot easier for our current families to apply for signature schools. Now, the key here is those families have to have a parent portal account. That is where they will submit their school choice, where they'll be able to see their application status, as well as where they can see their students' attendance, their students' grades, their students' class assignments. Like I use it, I know what Stella hasn't turned in yet. So that parent portal piece is huge. And it's going to involve a very intentional, well-coordinated effort, basically among everybody, between all of us here at central office, between our schools. We have to provide opportunity after opportunity, support after support for our families. It's not a difficult process, but it is technology. And we know that anytime we're talking about technology, we're talking about equity. And so we really, really need to make sure that all of our families are able to access that portal. Now, the good news is worst case scenario, say every time a family tries to activate their portal, their computer literally explodes. So they're like, I think I'm gonna stop doing this. They can call our admissions office, they can email us, they can call their school, and they can give them their school preferences, and we can enter those for them. And so that is one way that we're hoping to alleviate that concern. Lastly, and I know there's a lot, I'm not gonna read everything or really anything on this slide. You guys have this, you can read it at your own leisure. But really the key takeaway is our marketing team really felt like we needed common language around key terms. And so when we're talking about enrollment, we know exactly what that refers to, as well as what that process looks like. And so you'll see some common definitions of key terms there. Lastly, to review the dates, our parent portal activation campaign, we want to kick off coming back from Thanksgiving break. And that doesn't stop. That runs all the way through February 15th and beyond. The reason that's important is because since we are doing a lottery, regardless of whether you apply at 12:01 a.m. on December 6th or 11:59 p.m. on December 15th, you have the exact same chance of being awarded and offered a seat. That is all I had to share, and I am happy for any questions or thoughts that you would like us to consider as we continue to move forward looking at admissions requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. Ms. Wilsey?
Thank you. So I was on number, is it 34? So this is great. I think this is really important. These definitions, I think, are going to clear up a lot of, and for me, these are also, I drew a little inverted pyramid. It's the sales funnel. This is kind of how, and I would assume you would have numbers kind of down, like the enrollment number would be this, then it's going to be, the next one's going to be a little smaller. And so we eventually end up kind of knowing exactly how many kids we've verified that are going to come in. So I love that. The other question, I actually had a question on 33, which was, so these are a lot of the policies. I did have a question about, do we have a stated sibling policy around signature schools and whether or not they receive preference if you have a sibling in that signature school and you have another one that is trying to apply?
Yes, you do get preference.
Okay.
Ms. Cortez?
Thank you. I have a few questions, Mr. Rand, so I'm gonna kind of go backwards here. Well, let me start the other way. Pre-COVID, is there, and don't misunderstand my question, I am not advocating for the reinstatement of the testing for purposes of admission, okay? One of my questions is, pre-COVID, was there a correlation, any kind of correlation between test performance and performance as freshmen at Lincoln?
I don't know. I would have to look to see if we've done any of that work. That was before I got here. Dr. Bedell shaking his head though.
No, we've not done a study to look at students' percentile in terms of what they scored on the MAP assessment and how they performed in their freshman year.
So, I'm talking about the admissions test for Lincoln.
That's, the admissions test is them scoring the 60 in the 60th percentile, right? On the
Okay.
MAP assessment. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a separate thing. Take another one. Okay.
There is a separate test for students who did not take the MAP assessment that is for outside students that may be in a school where they did not take the MAP assessment, but it's primarily the MAP assessment.
Okay, so here's why I asked the question, because the bullet point that says school leadership will ensure that Lincoln Middle and Lincoln Prep students have access to resources and supports for struggling students. That deeply concerns me because I think our responsibility is to assess and support before they fail, before they're struggling. So to identify, like, what are we going to do if we're not going to test, and if the testing may or may not have been correlated to performance, how are we going to assess students, not for admission, but for what type of entry ramp they need to be successful at Lincoln when they become freshmen?
That's a good question, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's absolutely something we can do. And not just to ensure the kids are ready for grade level content day one, but also informs course selection. So I definitely think that that's something we could look at and try to do.
It just strikes me from an equity standpoint, if what we're really striving for is to ensure that every kid who enrolls will succeed, we need to understand what we need to do to help them succeed, and whether that's boot camp before their freshman year, and that may be appropriate for some and not others, whether it's, a full set of academic supports that they then opt out of as they progress. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but I'd hope we put some effort into that before. I think if we catch them once they're struggling, we're already handicapping their ability to succeed. And I'd like us to think differently about that.
I know as a former Lincoln parent, that actually did exist, at least when mine's now graduated, but that coming in more recently, that freshman that had, I think, maybe been on the borderline, did get a class. They were enrolled in a specific class, and it was a support class. So I don't know if that's still going on this year, but I know that in the past, they did have such a class at Lincoln for freshmen.
Thank you, that's great feedback.
One other quick question, and that is on slide, I can't even read these, 33. In terms of parents have current parents needing to have an active parent portal, do we have a sense of how many students have a parent or a responsible adult with an active parent portal?
It was around 13%.
Okay, so we have a long way to go before December 6th. Okay.
Through February 15th, because you get it anybody. Yes, we have a very large task.
Okay.
I didn't see, did you have a question, Ms. Ford?
Yes.
I anticipated.
I'm trying to phrase.
You want me to go before you, as you think through? Okay. So I think Ms. Cortez's point around equity is really important. This thing is way more complex than I think most people realize when you start thinking about, how do you ensure that every kid who has the potential to be successful at Lincoln also has an opportunity to actually go, right? And so I just think about my own personal story. And, I would not have had the grades to get into Lincoln. Right? Everyone would have sort of just written me off. And even if that on-ramp that Ms. Cortez was talking about, to get kids ready to be successful inside those four walls, I didn't have the home life that would have supported me as well. Right. And so it becomes this really sort of tricky. We have no control over someone's home life, right? And what that kid is experiencing when they're outside of the district's, control. But does that mean that we should look at that kid any differently than any other kid? Right? This whole notion of sort of redefining potential is something that I think we need to sort of figure out. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think we got to find a way to make sure that if a kid shows some interest in getting into Lincoln and we can provide that sort of on-ramp support, how do we also engage community stakeholders and other support organizations to help that kid's family support them as well? And I know that that's tough. We can't, the district, we're already doing that, right? We provide social services to families all the time. And this one just feels like another one that we need to sort of think through to some degree. And so I would just lay that it's not really so much a question. It's just more of like an appeal to the district to think about a kid like me who wouldn't have made it had I been admitted. Well, I would have never been admitted given my test scores and GPA. But I just think that I don't want us to be leaving kids behind without doing a whole bunch of the things that we could do to maybe get them ready. So I'm not sure if that even makes sense, but.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And I guess that's where I'm trying to go with this work we're trying to do around Blueprint 2030. It shouldn't be that the system is set up that you only can go to Lincoln and that is where, you will be able to flourish. The system needs to be designed in a way for a kid like you and I, because I wouldn't have gotten into Lincoln either, but I got a doctorate degree, right? I never was invited to take an advanced placement course in high school, although I've done well in education. But the environment in some of our neighborhood schools, as I've said before, are so rigid that for a kid like you and I, we may not even be able to survive in that environment. So part of what we have to do with Blueprint 2030, as we talk about how we want to dismantle and redesign what this system should be, in particular in our comprehensive high schools, because if Lincoln is working, it works. I don't know that there's much you need to do to tear that apart, but our high schools have to be much more flexible, much more agile to be able to service kids like several of us that grew up with those kind of backgrounds here, where we can also flourish and thrive. And I even said to my team, after serving as a substitute principal last week at one of our elementary schools, that experience opened my eyes up to, we might need to be looking at doing something similar that we want to do at the high school level for some of our elementary school kids who simply cannot sit still for 3 straight minutes. Doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong with them, but we got them in an environment that doesn't know how to reach them and have them be able to be much more tactile and mobile. So that's what this Blueprint 2030 work is about and has to be about, around how do we best reach our population. And we have to make that determination on what we all believe is going to be best for our kids in this community. And then we go to DESE and we have to tell DESE, this is the model that's going to work for our kids. So I don't want it to be that Lincoln has to be the end all for what our kids get in this district. So I just agree with you on that. I'm just telling you, I agree with you. And that's what I'm hoping we get to with Blueprint 2030.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Dr. Bedell. I mean, it goes back to the sort of the overarching theme of Blueprint 2030, right? Which is we got to focus on the student experience, and that means every single student, not just a select few. Ms. Ford?
Yeah, I'll just add on. I'm happy to hear the conversation headed in that direction. I would hope that our goal would be that one, all of our schools are considered signature in the way that's kind of defined, but that we are preparing all of our kids to be able to get into or succeed and thrive at whatever school that they are attending. And every school really is signature and good. So I'm happy that that is the direction that we are headed in and the conversation that I really think that we should be having. But while we do have this model that we're currently navigating, we're talking about signature schools, one of the things that I've heard probably the most about since I've been on the board, many from alumni, is just the changing demographics at Lincoln and how students of color are being negatively impacted by those changing demographics. So I'm just wondering, as we've made these recommendations tonight for the requirements, how was that a part of the conversation? That would be kind of really helpful for me to hear how you all have been thinking about that. And then also, I wanted to also hear, as we're talking about equity with the testing, which I 1000% agree with, I'm wanting to know, how was equity discussed with the GPA? So if there are students that are not able to thrive or be admitted to certain schools because the GPA is also a barrier, but they could potentially be successful, how was equity a part of the GPA conversation? And that might be kind of layered and there's a lot to it, but yeah.
There's definitely a lot of question. I would not argue. And so it's tough, right?
Yeah.
This whole thing, there's a reason I didn't say it's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Yeah.
This stuff is hard and it's stressful. And it impacts our community and our students and can impact their whole life trajectory, right? And so it's not an easy question. Because we have students that might have a 3.0 because they just showed up, kept their mouth shut, and were nice. Might not have anything to do with their academic ability. But there's also students that might have a 2.7 that maybe took a bunch of really difficult classes, or might have had a life event, or might have had some bad teachers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that play into that. And I don't think that that's something that I have an answer for right now. And I think that's why it's so important to extend this engagement over the next year and have those conversations and really try to figure out how can we have a process that is equitable, that allows everybody opportunity, and allows our students and families to advocate for themselves and explain why some things on the transcript may look the way that it does. So I did not answer
I knew it was a complex question, so that was totally fine. I do have maybe one more question, something that would be helpful for me to see down the line, definitely not tonight. I'm interested in seeing what do we know about students that are not qualifying for admissions? Like, what stories can we tell about them? Who are they? I think that would be helpful information for us to have down the line if we can have that.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a study from 2019-2020 school year, and we can provide that to you in a Friday update. Now, I will tell you that signature schools are grouped as a whole. We can break out individual schools, but that'll probably take us a little longer, and we can get that to you in a Friday update before.
I would love to see that even later.
All right, thank you all very much.
Hang on, nice try, sir. Ms. Wolfsey.
So when you asked that question, it reminded me of something. So what about the students who did qualify or could qualify to get in Lincoln who do not choose to go there? And have we ever tracked how they do in the other schools compared to the ones that do attend Lincoln? We don't need to answer that question now. The reason I ask, there have been multiple studies around the country about selective schools, New York in particular, New York and Chicago, I think. And what is interesting is when they study the students who actually could have gotten into the most selective schools and those students choose to go somewhere else, they compare the growth of the schools, the students in those neighborhood schools that they ended up going. And a lot of times I think they found that they went because their peers went there, right? Their cohort of friends. But the growth, the comparison of the growth is very interesting. Many times, the students who choose not to go grow more in the neighborhood schools. I would really love to see that information.
I know that in our study, we looked at for families that did not get in, which went to another one of our schools. I cannot believe that was part of it. We can definitely incorporate that because we'll want to do the same study we had for 1920 for 2021. We can definitely look at including some of that information because that's, as a researcher, even though I want somebody on my team to be doing it and not me, this sounds really fun.
What's interesting is I do think it would have an impact on what we could tell people about our neighborhood. I mean, I just think it's interesting to note what happens. What I think Chicago and New York found was that there's like this kind of self-selection of certain folks into a particular type of school, and it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy that people think that it's really the school, but not necessarily.
Mr. Abarca.
Yeah, I have some questions about this on-ramp that we keep talking about, and it seems like this is kind of a one-shot thing, right? I mean, is the on-ramp to get into some of these schools, there's only one time that you can enter. Is that correct? Or is there consideration as we look at, that pivotal moment to transition to freshman year, if you fail then, can you come back sophomore year when you're trying to get back into Lincoln? Are there multiple opportunities with that?
Yes, sir.
Good.
And really, it's based off of grade level capacity and grade level. And so, for instance, this past year, our 8th grade at Lincoln was 240. And so those 240, basically 8th grade was full. And so we were not able to offer as many 8th grade seats, but we did offer 8th grade seats. We offered 9, 10, and 12. 11th grade was full, so we weren't able to offer there. But yes, you can get in at any grade level, which I would advocate for because I got into Lincoln at 11th grade. So yes.
That is great to hear. One other comment that I think would be interesting data is, do we have, and I hope we're tracking this, for folks who do not get into Lincoln and choose to leave the system, do we have that data as well?
Yes, so it's part of that. If you didn't get into a signature, did you attend one of our other schools or did you exit the system?
Okay, I will take the last question here. And it's not really a question, it's really more of a note for you guys as you come back to us in the 22-23 school year around admission requirements. I get super nervous when I see the subjectivity around the behavior piece, because there's no way for you to uniformly actually make sure you're applying the same litmus test to every single kid. You can't. They all come in with their own stories, their own discipline, backgrounds and all of that stuff. So I think as you guys are thinking through that, it'll be really interesting to see how you're going to make sure that that process is equitable. So just something to note for a future conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And we can even give you basically the process and what we use with that committee currently. We can probably update.
Okay, cool, thanks. Oh, you do?
We had a very quick.
Oh, there's for the first time in the history of the school board, we have a joint question.
Oh, no, it's not joint. Just a quick comment to the conversation around Lincoln is not the only happening school. I really liked what the administration, what you all did last year, or I guess the May of this current year. And just really publishing on social media, like all the great things that kids from other schools were doing. So you published the scholarships, you published the credentials that people were getting, like how much money people got for scholarships at other schools, Southeast and Central, all these other schools, like that stuff I heard back from people who were like, oh, cool, I heard some other kid got scholarships from this other school. So I thought that was really great. And I think that's something that I would love to see more of, so please keep doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Rand, appreciate it.
All right, thank you. And our final presentation under the superintendent's report is our Blueprint 2030 update that we will provide to the community. As you all know, we do workshops with our board of directors and go over a lot of some of what you're going to hear about today, but we also have a responsibility to make sure that this is live streamed and archived, and then people have an idea of what we've been doing as we're progressing towards eventually bringing recommendations to the board. We'll pass it over to Jesse Lange.
So good evening. I want to share some exciting things that have been happening with Blueprint 2030, the board and the Kansas City community. Talking about some recent engagement highlights first. These are several things that have happened over the last month or so, whether it be gallery walks for the public and parents to really specific target groups like staff conversations, as well as some conversations with key influencers. We had our consultant Travis Pendleton from Vireo handle those for us, 6 different groups over 2 days to have some of those conversations, as well as the student summit with Ms. Wachel talked about earlier with the post-it notes, some of the feedback from that. We've had a kind of a diverse group that's enjoying some of these, talking to the question of who's joined. We have some numbers there listed to the side. This is, I think, the first time that the board has specifically seen the participation numbers. In some of these, we can pull out exactly which schools participated. Others kind of anecdotal, because we didn't ask somebody necessarily at each event which school they represented. And the in-person events might have skewed a little bit more one way, with our gallery walks to be more of one school represented, but we've seen kind of a variety of folks. We will say that based upon the participation we had at these events, it's definitely changing our game plan for the next few months is what we're doing as we target schools and really change how we're going to engage families. So in addition to these things that have happened, we're also adjusting our timeline to allow for extended engagement. So previously we'd always talked about trying to bring recommendations to the board in February of 2022. We pushed that out to the spring. So April, May, and kind of working back from there. We're still in that phase 2 of our process right now, the goal setting, establishing where do we want to be. We've talked to folks and they've given us good feedback on that. Now we're sharing that again with the community, kind of narrowing that down as we talk about goals and strategies, as well as kind of getting people up to speed who might have missed that phase 1 of where the district is. So the idea is we have goal setting through here at the end of the year, moving into scenarios, at the start of next year towards recommendations again in the spring. We do have current engagement opportunities that are available for folks. So even if there aren't any public meetings scheduled right now, we know we have some coming up in December 7th and 14th. But in the meantime, there are ways for people to give feedback on some of the items that we've been talking about. The 2 things that we're collecting feedback on right now online on the website, it's our kcpublicschools.org/blueprint2030. They can give feedback on the goals and strategies that have been drafted by focus groups and parents and teachers. So this was very interesting. We rolled out the goals and strategies to each teacher group that we met with at the school building to have them be able to go look at that Google document and make comments. So had good feedback so far. That's available to the larger community as well. We also have a student experience priority survey that's up. That's also been shared extensively with staff as well as parents. So anybody who has not taken that survey or looked at that document yet, we invite you to please do so on that Blueprint 2030 website. It is the first thing that's listed to direct folks there. Another thing that we're doing over the next couple of months is going out to people. So it's one thing to host meetings, but it's another thing to go out to where folks are at. So one piece is going out to the schools. So we made the ask of the DAC, which Angie talked about at the beginning of our meeting, trying to get out in front of school communities. So if any school is having an event, we're trying to make sure that we get out and speak to them at their event. We also want to open up to the larger Kansas City community as well. So on the website, right under those surveys that we just showed on the previous screen, there's a button where you can have an event request. So you can request somebody from the school district to speak at your neighborhood association meeting. It can be business association, faith-based community, whatever that might be. You can go on here, kind of tell us some details about your event, and we can try to get somebody out to that event to speak about Blueprint 2030. This is a great opportunity for KCPS to be able to spread this message with more folks. It's also a nice place to direct people because sometimes we know we want people to be involved and they might know somebody at the district and have an in that way. We want everybody to be able to have this request out. Even if we can't make their event, we can definitely keep them updated with information, anything that they might need to pass on to additional folks. So this is a way that we can continue to direct people to the website to be able to request this. And finally, we are also pursuing a formal RFQ process for technical third-party support. So that's going to help us as we move into these next phases, primarily phases 3 and 4. We get into reviewing what we've done so far, but also assisting us with the development of the scenarios as we roll those out to the public at the beginning of next year, as well as some final recommendations made to the board of directors.
Mr. Lang, thank you. I will open it for questions, but I just want to say to everyone who's out in the community listening, please, please, please engage in this process. There's a ton of opportunities to do so. You're literally going to be shaping the future of this district through that engagement. You won't have tons of opportunities beyond this though, right? It'll just be tough for the district to sort of go backwards and use that information to sort of change the direction. And so please engage. It's really important. Your board's going to get out there and start engaging with different organizations and the community as well. I sent just to my board colleagues, I sent my information over to Ms. Wachel yesterday around some of the organizations I want to help engage with, and I hope you'll all find an opportunity to do that as well. So I'll open it up for any questions. Mr. Abarca?
Yeah, I think it's important to note to the public, again, exactly what the chairman had suggested, but also that this is beyond just school closures potentially and building changes. As we've talked about even tonight, where we put what future program could be part of this, where students have access to more opportunities as part of this. So it's not just, unfortunately, about the salacious headlines of closing buildings. It is much more and much broader of a subject matter.
Agreed. Ms. Buckner.
Hi, thank you for this. When I asked Ms. Wachel earlier for a more streamlined snapshot of the data, I was under the impression that you were going to do that. So I just want to formally ask for that. If we could, I don't know how you want to get that to us, but I think it's important that you slow walk the board and the community through trends that you're seeing, even if we don't have all the data, right? So that if a message is being sent that's not actually capturing what the community wants, that it's refined. We just need to make sure that the communication is frequent and thorough. So if I could have that in an update for the next board meeting or in the Blueprint 2030 workshops that we engage with, but I would like to see that.
Absolutely, we can put that either we have some of the information kind of already synthesized for those key kind of issues that I think we can definitely put in the Friday update. As far as kind of a bigger piece, I think we wanted to outline some of that specific feedback like from the Student Summit. We have our intern working with us, our East High graduate. She's been feverishly kind of logging all that feedback, and so that's something that we could share at the next board workshop for sure.
That'd be great, thank you.
June's got it, Ms. Buckner. She captured it. I think we're good. All right, thank you, Mr. Lang, appreciate it. Dr. Bedell? That concludes.
Yeah, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Okay, then we are going to turn it over to our treasurer, Mr. Abarca, for the treasurer's report.
Yay, the best part of the meeting, undoubtedly. Thank you, Ms. Quinley, for joining me. So looking here, again, we are in an interesting part of the year, but it's pretty standard as to where we're at in our budget process. So our year-to-date operating expenditures are $41.4 million more than year-to-date revenues. Again, as we're going to bounce around some of these slides, we're in a point where we're spending dollars and not taking dollars in yet because our property tax revenue will be collected towards the end of this year and then dispelled to us. So looking at our percentage balance here, we are right in line with where we're supposed to be spending. I think we're there we go. We're catching up here. So our total year-to-date revenue is 7.7% of our budget, and most of the federal programs funds are where we're receiving at this point. Looking at our revenue pie chart, Here we go. Our local revenue is 75% of our currently budgeted revenue. Again, these are property taxes collected. I think it's important to note that as we talk about a broader property tax conversation, this component needs to be priority. As we reduce property taxes, we reduce the amount of dollars given to our kids and our school systems abroad, no matter what county. So this is a significant portion of the way that we fund our public schools currently. So looking at this slide here, looking at line item 6121, specifically substitute salaries for teachers, you'll see that this line is $485,000 over budget as of the end of October. But this is primarily due to our own program that we designed due to the sub shortage. We are compensating teachers to use their time to sub in classrooms versus other districts that may not be paying folks for this. We have made the choice to proactively incentivize that participation since we have folks who are available and capable of reducing or reducing the impact to student learning by their engagement in these classrooms. So wanted to highlight that component. So again, purchase services, you'll see along the side the percentage of our current expenditures at this point. So total expenditures are at 23% of the budget, which is normal for this time of the year, since salaries and benefits are the largest portion of our expenditure budget, as we will show in the next pie chart. So looking at salaries and benefits in blue and orange make up over 63% of our total budget, as that is the largest lion's share's output of our revenues. Looking at our investments, again, this is where we are spending down our investments as we are in a low cash flow position at this moment. As we receive more revenues, we will be in a high cash flow component, making more investments for the times that we're not receiving revenues. So that's just showing that we're drawing things down. Any questions? Ask Ms. Quinlan.
Any questions for Mr. Abarca? No? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to ad hoc committee reports, and I think we just have one tonight from the Government Relations Committee Chair, Ms. Wolfsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to remind everybody that we've got 2 upcoming events and a meeting, but Friday, December 3rd will be our legislative breakfast here at the BOE, and invitations have gone out for that, and so we're just doing the follow-up on that and making sure we have a nice attendance, which we typically do for that event. Then we'll have our regular meeting on December 14th, and then we're real excited. I think it was mentioned earlier tonight by the DAC report. We're going to be doing our KCPS Lobby Day on our own this year, earlier, January 19th, which is a Wednesday, and our intention is to take down some contingents that include not only district administration and board, but also families, so parents and students, possibly some community members, maybe even some teachers. So really looking forward to that. And then I'll put in one last plug. If you are interested in staying up to date on what's going on as it relates to local and state legislative information, you can sign up to receive that at legislative alerts at kcpublicschools.org. That's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsey. Any questions for Ms. Wolfsey? No? All right. Well, we'll move into our appointment here. So the Board of Directors appoints a trustee to the Kansas City Public Schools Retirement System Board of Trustees as needed. Each appointee serves a 4-year term. This year, we're appointing 2 individuals to fill the vacant seats of one person who's retiring at the end of the term in December and another who vacated the seat for personal reasons. Advertisements and announcement of the 2 open seats were placed in local media and newsletters. 2 qualified individuals applied for the open seats, and the board would like to approve these 2 appointments. So the chair would entertain a motion to appoint Mrs. Cecilia Carter to the Kansas City Public Schools Retirement System Board of Trustees for a 4-year term beginning January 1, 2022 and ending December 2026.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the motion passes. Congratulations to Ms. Carter. I would also entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Eddie Smith to the Kansas City Public Schools Retirement System Board of Trustees to a 2-year term beginning immediately and ending December of 2023. Or a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. June, will you call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. Congratulations to Mr. Smith. With that being said, Dr. Bedell, we'll turn it over to you to go through the regular business items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 6 items that we're asking the board to take action on. Item number 1 being the KCPS funding agreements with individual charter schools in the amount of $1,200,750. And as we've stated previously, in 2019-2020, local property taxes owed to charter schools under the current state statute became greater than the amount of state funding available to KCPS. This is due to the fact that local property tax per pupil is greater than state funding per pupil. To ensure charters receive their equitable share of local revenues, the KCPS Board of Directors offered a voluntary funding MOU to local charter schools. The administration at this time is requesting the approval of the 3rd year of these MOUs for the 3 remaining charters not previously approved at the October board meeting. So the estimated cost for these 3 is $1.2 million and a total of $10 million for all charters this year.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bedell. And before I call for a motion, I would just like to say, and I think I speak for my fellow board members in this regard as well, that we're looking forward to additional opportunities to collaborate with the charter schools in the best interest of the kids across the city. All right, so is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the individual funding agreements for the schools mentioned to fulfill Kansas City Public Schools' commitment to all schools in the Kansas City Public School or all students, apologies, in the KCPS boundaries?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Pardon me. Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Goodness, I apologize.
Take your time.
We love allergies.
It's that exciting.
It is. Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Take your time. Yes, the motion passes. Dr. Bedell?
All right, June, I'm gonna read nice and slow. The administration is requesting approval of the renewal of our medical stop-loss coverage with Sun Life Assurance. The renewal includes an increase of our stop-loss limit from $100,000 to $150,000 for an annual premium of $2,657,331.84, which is available in the operating budget.
All right, any questions? Seeing none. All right, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools for board approval to authorize the application for self-insured medical stop-loss coverage for claims over $150,000?
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. June, are you ready to call the roll?
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Mr. Chair, for this next item, I'm gonna ask Dr. Darrell Davis to come up to the podium. This next item is a zero cost item. The administration requests the adoption of the land acknowledgement statement, which has been attached to recognize and respect indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of this land. This, once again, is a part of the work that we're doing within our Equity and Inclusion Division. And this is a movement that not only is something that we're taking seriously in the Kansas City Public School District, but many other districts across the country. So Daryl has about 5 minutes. Okay, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Liddell, and greetings and good evening, Board Chair Hogan, members of the board and audience. So I rise this evening to share a little bit of background about the land acknowledgement that we have drafted for your approval and adoption before it could go onto our website. I was slated to have a couple of co-presenters with me representing indigenous peoples. They are employees at the Kansas City Indian Center, and they were very instrumental. So this statement was actually drafted about a year ago, and we were at home, and so it was somewhat difficult to try to vet it through Native tribes and to get their approval before bringing it to you. And so we were able to do that this year. November is Native American Heritage Month. And so we thought it was important to try to unveil that around this time of the year. And so they're not here only because I saw it was on the end of the agenda, and so told them that, not wait around to this late, but they were prepared with statements to be here this evening. So I do want to acknowledge Carol Blackwood as well as Galen Krauser for their support and acknowledgement. This slide, they had some prepared remarks that they were going to share. So I will, and my former history teacher, to maybe be a good substitute for what they may have shared. But for many of us, and for many students, we're familiar with Native tribes around the country, more popular names like Mohawk, Cherokee, but there are more than 600 tribes in our nation where the government recognizes those. And so tonight in our land acknowledgement, which you'll see, we have mentioned the Native and indigenous tribes that were here in our local area. And so many students may not know that our city bears its name from a Native tribe. Our state bears its name from a Native tribe. I've heard, or it may have been Dr. Bedell has mentioned that Troost Avenue, where we currently sit or stand right now, used to be the Osage Trail, which was also an indigenous nation that was here on this ground. So a land acknowledgement is really just our way of reconciling and recognizing and valuing those who were the original inhabitants of this land. If you're my age, you probably went to an elementary school that said Columbus discovered America. Very little about those who stood on our ground 10,000 years before any settler colonists came. And so this is our way of reconciling that. And then also, last thing I'll say as a former history teacher, and things that are just missing from the curriculum, we call it erasure, is that, how many are aware that Native Americans did not receive full citizenship until 1924. And so those who were first on the land were last to be granted citizenship. That was through the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. These are things that many individuals, adults and kids, just simply do not know. And so this is our way of just having a formal statement which acknowledges that simple truth. And so on the statement, you'll see, and I'm going to read this in its entirety, but you'll see that in the parentheses, we use the names that we're likely more familiar with. These are names that were given by settler colonials, but we were intentional about using the names that the tribes refer to themselves as, and then in parentheses for all of us to make those connections. So the land acknowledgement statement that we would like to serve as our formal statement for our website for your adoption. That Kansas City Public Schools acknowledges that our schools are built on the ancestral homelands of the Kaw, Kansa, Jiriri, or Oto, Nutachi, or Missouri, the Wasaji, or Osage nations and peoples. We honor and respect the indigenous peoples whose land is now part of our district boundaries. We acknowledge that indigenous peoples in Kansas City, the state of Missouri, and throughout the United States were forced to cede their territory and endure generations of genocide. Kansas City Public Schools is committed to creating a culture of equity and affirming all communities, especially those who are marginalized. The stories and heritage of indigenous peoples will be shared, valued, and celebrated within our schools. And this was crafted by Kansas City Public Schools, vetted through Native peoples who put their stamp of approval on this and help with some of the wording that's there. And so we offer this to our board of directors for your approval and adoption before we can publish this anywhere on our site or anywhere else where mission statements or such appear.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Davis, for bringing us forward and your commitment to this work over the last year. I know that your heart is in this sort of work, so thank you. So I want to apologize to our guests. We normally try to move all the guest participatory related stuff to the very front of the agenda so that they're not waiting. So that I own that. That's my bad. I should have sort of kept a closer eye on that and moved it forward. So apologies. And if you'd send me their contact information, I'd love to just reach out to them and have a conversation. With that being said, any questions from the board? Mr. Abarca?
Yeah, Dr. Davis, I want to echo what the chairman said. I think this is an incredibly important denotation for us and the places that we are. And because of that, I would like to ask my colleagues to consider adopting this motion with unanimous consent due to the gravity of the nature of this situation and us setting a clear role model to our peers within the region. So with that, I'd like to move to adopt with unanimous consent.
Any debate on that request? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve by unanimous consent?
So moved or seconded. I thought he motioned.
All right, it's late. It's been moved and seconded. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Daryl Davis, and I just have to say this to you. I probably would have flourished as a student in your classroom. And the way that you present with the calmness, the knowledge, and the sensitivity to areas and topics that are kind of difficult. You know, you made that as smooth as possible for this board and even for me. And so I just want to thank you for that. And I can just sit here. I can listen to you all day. I'm just telling you that. So I just, and a guy that wants to be, I'm a history guy too, but the way you roll about doing it, man, it's really smooth and with a lot of knowledge. So I just want to commend you in front of everybody.
That's awesome, but he means not like literally all day. Like just to be.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's true. If we having a separate conversation somewhere, that's true. Okay, we have a couple of other items. I know we moved to consent, but we're not done yet. The fourth item are items that we've already discussed with the board. Administration requests approval of an amendment to the AFT certified CBA to increase teacher substitution rates for the 2021-22 fiscal year. The estimated cost of $1.3 million will be covered with existing school budgets to include title and ESSER funds.
Any questions from the board? Ms. Ford?
Just for clarity, so this is just for current teachers? This is not for external folks?
Yeah, this is just for our current staff.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the amendment to the collective bargaining agreement for KCAFT and SRP certified personnel to increase substitution duty compensation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. June, will you call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Oh, I'm struggling with these glasses because I'm trying, they get foggy, man, and I'm not used, struggling here. I need those? Okay. Rita, that's good. The administration requests approval of an amendment to the AFT classified CBA to increase the daily rate for paraprofessionals when substituting as the classroom teacher. The estimated cost of $6,000 is available in the existing salary budget.
Any questions? All right, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the amendment to the CBA for KC, AFT, and SRP classified personnel for estimated additional compensation?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. June, will you call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfson?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the final item is the administration requests approval of an amendment to the AFT Certified CBA collective bargaining agreement to begin negotiations in November this year rather than January as previously agreed. And the reason being is that we want to go ahead and work to try to get teacher pay raises, all of those items that we need to negotiate done at a much earlier rate, so our teachers know and have an understanding of what salaries will look like and steps will look like for the upcoming school year. And we think that would also help prevent potential turnover, because in the past, I know we've done it and people are already going elsewhere. And right now, we're in a very highly competitive environment, so this makes more sense to negotiate earlier, and this will become the process moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Any questions? All right, is there a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the amendment to the collective bargaining agreement, KCAFT and SRP certified personnel to begin off-year bargaining of salaries and benefits prior to the date mandated by the CBA?
So moved.
Is there a sec- Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. June, will you call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfson?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes.
Oh, there was one. Wasn't there one that got pulled out?
Oh, on the consent, yes. Yeah. So no questions on consent, I'm guessing. All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of six? I believe it is, right? Healthy outcomes is the one. That'll be removed to make some corrections to the contract language and will reappear in a consent agenda in the future. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus number 6?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfson?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, it's definitely time to go. Things are getting a little strange on that side of the table here. All right, June, can you review the new tasks and action items for us?
They're coming. Okay. Regarding soda pop graphics, it is requested to add details and information regarding them in the Friday update. Makes sense. Ms. Buckner has asked to see trends and data regarding Blueprint 2030 feedback. In Dr. Jones' discussion, she's asked, Amanda Holdsworth has asked to speak with her for 15 minutes. I did put that in here. Ms. Woolsey would like to see in the Friday update the numbers to show the tracking for enrollment. Is there anything more specific you'd like for me to add to that one?
Yeah, specifically, I know we're doing efforts. The example I gave was direct mail, and I know that Ms. Wachel mentioned that they will have the ability of specific tactics to be able to track how those are performing, like response rates, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Ms. Cortez has asked, there are 10 of them. Is there a correlation between test scores on the map and how students perform in their freshman year? How are we going to assess students to support their success before they start struggling? Is that correct, Ms. Cortez?
We'll probably skip the first part of it.
Okay.
The second part, that's an open question.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the next one, Ms. Ford asked, what do we need to know about students who are not qualifying for signature schools?
It's basically who's not qualifying, disaggregated, who's not being admitted to our signature schools. Separate by the schools.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Wolsey has asked, what do we know about students who qualified for signature schools but chose not to go to the signature school? And how did they perform in the neighborhood schools? Thank you. Mr. Abarca asked, do we have the data of the students who did not get into Lincoln, and did they stay in the district? What happened to them? Ms. Buckner asked, oh, the trends, we have that one. And then Mr. Barker, you said one at the end that I missed. The one on stakeholder?
Oh, the percentages of stakeholders and their engagement, right? So if you're talking to a certain snapshot of parents, are they all from a certain corridor? If you're talking to chamber members, how many chamber members are engaged, that kind of information.
Okay, and that's the end of the comments I have.
Okay. Can I modify that first one, I think, to add the specifics around what?
Top?
Yeah, about the Latino component and then also the multilingual, whether that's the current consultant or future consultant's consideration.
Thank you.
Was that it, June?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, so before we adjourn, really quickly, I want to recognize one of my fellow school board members, Miss Tanisha Ford, for completing, and you get the snazzy certificate and a pin for completing her Missouri School Board required training. That's right, yeah. Do we need a picture?
I worked hard. It's not real unless it's a picture.
Yeah,
No,
okay. Yeah, oh, we're gonna do it.
After we adjourn.
Oh my goodness, it's too late.
All right.
I mean, it's too late. You're already halfway there. Is what I meant.
Just acknowledge.
And it's
Oh, we're doing that. No, we're doing yeah. It'll just be weird, right? All right, I think that means we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.